Okay, so we have resumed the lecture. We were talking about the critical evaluation of structuralism. We today are talking about first thing 7 schools of psychology, out of which the first school is structuralism, which because of the efforts of Wilhelm Wundt and his disciple Edward Titchener, gave birth to experimental or scientific psychology. Psychology got an independent identity. This much we had understood. And the school of structuralism, after establishing the first scientific lab in Leipzig for doing the experiments related to psychology, where psychology shifted its focus of study from soul to mind to consciousness, which was based on breaking it down to the most basic elements of image, affect and sensation, then seeing its interaction with each other, how they interact with each other. The basic idea here was that psychology's focus should be on studying this consciousness in a scientific manner by doing the scientific self-observation or introspection, the name given by introspection, name given by these structuralism school theorists themselves, where a trained volunteer will observe the consciousness, or what happens when the volunteer is exposed to any stimulus in the environment, what experiences or what mental processes he or she goes through. That is to be reported in an as objective manner as possible. But one thing we have realized doing the critical evaluation, that it was not an objective way, non-objective way, not at all scientific, not even closer to science. This is highly subjective method of introspection. The focus of study is on consciousness. Consciousness is not something which we have seen, so again the subject matter itself is not so clear, not so objective, so we cannot say that we are following the discipline of psychology in a scientific temperament. Apart from that, it was not a holistic approach. It was a reductionist elementalist molecular approach. The approach was molecular. Nonetheless, the focus was on structure. Structure of the consciousness, structure of the mental process. Rather than that, there emerged another school named as functionalism, which said, why should we study the structure of consciousness? Though we agree that the focus of the study should be consciousness only, mental processes only, but why should we study its structure? What will happen if we study the structure only? This is the era of Darwin and William James, those who believed in the adaptive science, adaptation process. The function consciousness serves, which helps us adapting to the environmental stimuli. adaptation, and the function served by whom? Served by the same consciousness or mind. Some people call it mind also, but I would like to suggest you the better idea is to use consciousness. What function does it serve? What is the function of it? So there came the emergence of what? Purposive behavior. Purposive. What is the purpose of your behavior? Is it better than the idea of looking at the structure of something? The answer is yes. If you evaluate somebody's behavior, would you like to evaluate his or her purpose of the behavior or intent? Intent of the behavior or the behavior itself? You must have studied in your paper of ethics, integrity, aptitude also that the intent matters. And I would like to advise you also, whenever you are evaluating any phenomena objectively, analyze it from the point of view of the purpose it serves. What is the intent behind? And when you react to the situation, what solution is it giving? Whether you are reaching to a solution or you are just reacting for the sake of reacting. That is why the purposive idea was much better and it gained more currency than others. But unfortunate fact is that functionalism did not have any clear leader. And you know what happens? It is said that if a bunch of tigers are led by a dog or they are leaderless, the situation is more pathetic than a bunch of dogs being led by a tiger. Here there is only single tiger, but still this group is much better. That is why functionalism lost its space, lost its importance as far as discipline of psychology is concerned, because there was no clear leader. There was no leader as towering as there have been leaders for psychoanalytic perspective or behaviorism. Both of which remain a dominant force. Even now, despite the fact that psychoanalytic school is not scientific, despite the fact that psychoanalytic school did not give any experimental proof, did not have any empirical evidence, largely focusing upon your unconscious, which never have been seen, largely focusing upon the dark forces, the negative viewpoint about the human beings, had still remained. Even now, you say to somebody that, do you know Sigmund Freud? They might have heard his name, but they are very pretty impressed by the kind of genius Sigmund Freud was, who was able to tell you that your behavior, what you are showing right now, is not the reality. It's just the tip of the iceberg, which we can see, the consciousness. What lies beneath is actual reality, and that is huge, deep, rhetorical, negative. That was a dark era, we can understand, but still its impact in terms of hypnotherapy, in terms of neuro-linguistic programming, which is quite prevalent nowadays, it exists. Look at behaviorism. Though its ideology was based on reductionism, environmental determinism, but it played a major dominant role. You know why? Because functionalism did not show what? Two things, which is important for survival of any human being or any force. Leadership. Leaderless. It was leaderless. And one thing, one aspect which they did not show: perseverance. In the eyes of defeat, when you are being questioned every now and then, gut wrenching questions, do you have the spine to come full throttle, attack the person, attack the ideology which is against you, or rather not attack, just keep working to achieve success? That is perseverance. That was not being shown. These two qualities were not being shown by functionalism. That is why it lost its relevance. But still, they had huge impact on the discipline of psychology. Like structuralism, you see, structuralism gave birth to what? Experimental psychology. The science of psychology. They gave psychology its identity. Likewise, it had a huge heuristic impact. You see, the structure. They talked about the structure. Let's have a look at Sigmund Freud's analysis of structure of personality. Id, ego, superego. Id forces depending upon the primal urges we have. Primal. Or we can call it animal instincts. Animal instincts which people are born with. Ego shows us the reality. Superego is our moral watchdog. Moral watchdog, the moral values shaped and transitioned by the impact of your parenting. What did you learn from your parents? What is morality? The parents with whom you subconsciously, unconsciously identified. The society shaped your morality. Okay, so what we see here is the structural analysis. Do you see any resemblance of this structural analysis with the structuralism? The answer is yes. So heuristic impact. Not only this, the heuristic impact was also seen in the works of behaviorism. When behaviorists talked about reductionism or molecular approach, molecular, not molar, molecular, reducing it to small elements. Did you see reduction here and in structuralism both? So can we say that structuralism gave birth to two disciplines or two perspectives in the discipline of psychology? One, your psychoanalytic. Secondly, your behaviorism. Did it happen? The answer is yes, it happened. As a rhetorical force to structuralism, did not functionalism emerge? Yes. Functionalism said that you are studying about the structure of consciousness. It is not a good approach. The approach should be to study the purpose, the function it caters, the adaptation it gives rise to, so that we can survive in the environment where stimuli is changing every now and then. Functionalism. Functionalism did not withstand the test of the time because of its inner problems. As iron gets rusted because of its inner issues, not something which is outside in the environment. Structuralism did not withstand the test of the time because it was not scientific at all. Functionalism did not withstand the test of the time. If functionalism had a clear leader, if functionalism had shown perseverance, that functionalism would have become a major force like behaviorism later on. Mind it. So there came another school after structuralism and functionalism, behaviorism. But before leaving the scene of psychology, functionalism also served purpose in form of first giving rise to behaviorism, of course. Secondly, having a huge impact on educational psychology. Having a huge impact on the purposive psychology. And one more interesting thing which right now came to my mind is structuralism. Talked about scientific discipline of psychology. Scientific psychology. Can you see any other force in psychology which has talked about scientific approach? Yes. Positivism. Not positive psychology, which is because of the humanistic impact. Positivism. Positivism is use of science and scientific methods in any discipline. So psychology also got impacted because of this positivism theory or positivism force. Positivism had a huge impact on shaping of structuralism, and structuralism further shaped positivism. These are extra points which you can jot down and write in your answer. So we have seen two major schools, structuralism, then functionalism. What do you see missing here is this talks about elementalism, elemental approach, elements. Reduce it to as basic elements as it can be. Functionalism talks about the functions but still talks about the elemental approach only. What is missing here? This is missing here. The idea that the whole complete picture is more than the sum of the parts like mental processes, consciousness, broken down to image, affect and sensation. Do you think our behavior can be reduced like this? What image did you get? What emotions came to your mind? Or rather, what emotions generated through your physiological drive? How your skin responded? Then the sensation you achieved? Can we analyze the human behavior in such manner? Given the fact that human behavior is quite complex. And if anything is complex, its understanding can only be given by this method. Understanding it in its entirety. That is why I say, if you are preparing for UPSC, don't have that. Reductionist approach, Pavlovian approach, have a bird's eye view. If you have the bird's eye view, you'll be able to connect things together. In the paper 1 to paper 2, paper 2 to GS, ethics with essay, ethics essay all with the optional paper 2, and you'll be a smart learner, achieve success sooner. So the complete picture is more than the sum of its parts. Give birth to another school, which is very important, although not having much impact on the psychology as compared to what was done by psychoanalytic approach, the behaviorist theories, humanist theories, or cognitive revolution. That was your Gestalt. What do Gestaltians say? The same thing. Whole, complete picture is more than the sum of its parts. Have you seen an elephant? If you just describe elephant's trunk, this is your elephant. These are legs of the elephant. Tail of the elephant. If you describe the tail of the elephant, if a blind person goes and describes the tail of the elephant, it will appear as if it is an altogether different organism, altogether different body. The feet, legs, the trunk, everything has its own relevance. But can you describe, just by going through this elemental analysis, can you describe the mammoth size of the elephant just by describing it into the parts? No. So Gestaltians say, Gestalt theory says, Gestalt psychology, school of Gestalt psychology says that any phenomenon should be described as a whole, not in its parts and then summing up the parts, because the summing up will not solve our purpose. We have to see things in its entirety. Okay, so the Gestalt approach was quite evident in the works of Kuhler, Wertheimer, especially evident, relevant in the field of SAP, sensation, attention, perception, especially perception. If you see the phi phenomena, phi, alternate lights, this is lit, this is dark. This in a series. If you look at it from a distance, it will appear as if the light is running. Have you seen some sentences on your digital board written in an inverted fashion? The mirror image of the words, mirror image. Although the mirror image is written, you still make sense of it. You are able to read it. Why? Because in your mind, the way we perceive things, to give it a meaning, we complete the picture, make it a whole. We do it on our own. That is called, also called, top down approach, top down perception. We first understand the meaning of something, then give it a perception. Meaning precedes you looking at its parts. Gestalt psychology, like functionalism, did not make much of the relevance. Only for the sensation, attention, and perception chapter, or some of the phenomena they were able to explain. But now you see the relevance, because psychology as an optional we are studying for UPSC, but we have to see the current trends. Have you seen the current trend? Are you aware of the current trend, or only aware about the notes given since last 20-25 years, the old notes? The current trend is of these: NLP, neuro linguistic programming, Gestalt psychology. These are the skills the modern psychologists are learning, and even the common man is learning, to give a meaning to their life, to train others for leadership, to train others for communication, to train others for living a happy life, happiness coach. And this is quite evident if you see the social media, Instagram and everywhere. You'll realize that these coaches are aplenty, many of them are there. So Gestaltians, Gestalt psychology has made its reappearance, and you should also be watchful about these things. Gestalt makes lots of sense, because we cannot see everything in the reductionist format. You have to see things in entirety, especially if we talk about the perception. So this is the relevance of Gestalt, especially in the fields of sensation, attention, and perception. Then while these perspectives were fiddling around, I will say, just trying to make an impact, there emerged one of the most dominant schools, one of the most dominant perspectives in psychology, known as behaviorism. Behaviorism, which said that till now our focus of study was not apt, was not correct. What we are studying is not the right object of study as far as scientific discipline of psychology is concerned. We should study only those things which are observable. And measurable. That is overt behavior. It also said that any complex phenomena can be reduced to small, simple parts. And these simple parts, known as micro responses, are shaped by stimulus in the environment. Stimulus there in the environment shapes our response. Simplest of the responses, these, when combined with other responses, give rise to complex behavior. Behaviorism, under the leadership of, again I say the leadership is very important, Skinner, Pavlov, Watson, said that whatever we theorize should be based on a lab experiments. There is no role of covert experiences and covert mental processes. This stand taken by radical behaviorists, those who said that no, there is no role of any internal mental process, stimulus gives rise to response, as simple as that. There is no role of O, organism, I, internal mental process, no, nothing. SR, mirror image, changes in the stimuli in the environment, our response also changes. We are behaving as if we are animals. This was the stand taken by behaviorism. Mind it that behaviorism has remained as the most dominant force, as the most dominant perspective of psychology even now. They gave rise to most number of theories, most number of universally applicable theories, like this classical conditioning, like operant conditioning. In classical conditioning, what's happening? Because we are pairing a conditioned stimulus with unconditioned stimulus, the response which were being given for the conditioned stimulus starts being apparent for unconditioned stimulus as well after continuous and constant pairing. What does operant conditioning say? There is a response that gives rise to consequences. If this consequence is in the form of reward, the response gets strengthened. If the consequence is in the form of punishment, the response gets diminished. Simple. Classical operant. Single one-liners. You should also prepare one-liners, two-liners for every thing, so that you simplify and don't make it technical. Just explain. Food, saliva. Of course, bell, no saliva. Food with bell, continuously paired for a long time. After some time, bell, saliva. It's a common sense that if you produce the food and then you ring the bell, it won't have an impact. But if you ring the bell and then you produce the food, it will have a major impact. Conditioning, forward conditioning, backward conditioning. Just simplify the process. Making it further complex will make your life hell. So, behaviorism had major impact on the theories of learning and therapies. Behavior modification. This is a clear-cut, direct application of the theories of behaviorism, which is evident in the theory books. But it used to be asked earlier. But now the examiner is not going to ask these simple, silly questions. The examiner will ask applied questions. For that applied version, your behavior modification, token economics won't work. For that, you need to understand and apply the concepts of paper 1 onto the paper 2, which is missing in most of the aspirants. You know why has it happened? It's not that your IQ is less. It's not that you don't know how to apply. You have never tried to. And why have you never tried to? Because things have been made so complex that you fear. I can't even cover it. How will I apply? That's the problem. So, behaviorism had a huge impact on overall discipline of psychology, and it remains as a major force. Structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism. In between came your gestaltist approach. Then after that, three major forces: P, H, C. P, psychoanalytic. Psychoanalytic perspective, the emergence of psychoanalytic perspective by one of the biggest stalwarts evident in the discipline of psychology, Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is like somebody whom you hate, whom you deny, but still you like. As simple as that. Sigmund Freud said that human behavior is not so simple, buddy, that you see it, observe it, experiment it, measure it, and then reach to the theorization. Human behavior is very complex. Our behavior is shaped by unconscious forces, uncon. These forces are shaped in early childhood. We are driven by a determinism, but not the environmental determinism, but psychic determinism. Psychic. Our psyche. As to the human psyche, what is this psyche? Something which we are born with. The energy with which you are born with. And that is driven by the primal forces, the primal urges, the animalistic instinct, the wild instincts which you have. And the prime source of that energy is your id, which keeps on saying you behave like an animal. The exact replica of id is your Ranbir Kapoor in Animal movie. Id forces. But there are other aspects also. There is ego, which exposes id to the reality. There is superego, which is shaped by the moral values which the child, because largely we are talking the early childhood experiences, the child imbibes unconsciously in himself or herself from the parents and the society. So id is kept in check by the forces of ego and superego, and that is why human beings display this defense mechanism. This was the major contribution of psychoanalytic perspective. Psychoanalytic perspective, like the other schools earlier to it, were largely focusing on what major idea? Abnormal behavior, abnormal behavior, abnormal psychology or abnormal behavior. They focused on how to treat the abnormality in somebody, because during the era of Sigmund Freud there emerged so many of mental disorders like hysteria, unexplicable disorders, inexplicable, and Sigmund Freud treated all this through innovative, unscientific yet workable methods like talking cure. Treated NAO, the patient, through this method. Sigmund Freud also devised many other methods to give us a peep into your unconscious. So, there emerged one undercurrent, one force, one perspective in psychology which said, why are we looking at the human beings as a plethora, a bag of dark forces? Why are we saying that human beings behave abnormally? Human beings are born with an ability to achieve free will, whatever they wish they can, to become self-actualized, also it says that the focus of psychology should not be on treating the abnormality but focusing on positive emotions. Not treating the abnormality, treating disorders, in this direction. You know what is this direction? This is called positive psychology. What is positive psychology, which is a significant element of community psychology? Positive psychology says that our focus should be on positive emotions, where we are not talking about treating the disorders, but we are talking about ensuring that there are positive emotions. Human beings are not free of disease, but they are having happy, healthy, fully functioning approach. Fully functioning human beings. And it is through this school that there emerged a CCT, client-centered therapy, non-directive therapy. Non-directive. Therapies are of two types. Directive, where the therapist directs you, the counselor directs you, guides you in a certain direction, shapes your behavior. When it is shaped by your behaviorist approach, or psychoanalytic approach, in both of them the therapist is directing you to do certain activities, guiding you, directing you. But the humanistic approach says non-directive. They have belief in the client, not the patient. They don't call them patient, they call them client. You are a client and you need to understand on your own that there is a need to change the belief system. Your belief is wrong. You are a perfectionist, you are in for shock. First of all, you must accept yourself. You must accept your limitations. You must accept your problems. You must accept the challenges you are going through. And you must accept that nobody is a perfect person. Once you change your belief, the cognitions, you will become a fully functioning person again. So there is a incongruence between your real self and ideal self. What you want to become and what you are. There is lots of incongruence. And that is why, that is the root cause of most of the illness or disorders. The stalwarts here were Rogers, Maslow. Maslow talked about the self. Rogers talked about need hierarchy. Once we achieve our physiological needs, basic needs, then we move to esteem needs. We want some esteem, social esteem. In society we must get respect. Self-esteem, we must give respect to ourselves. Then we move to these actualizing tendencies, self-actualization, where we have peak experiences. Whatever the environment might be, whatever the situation might be, we are at the healthiest, happiest self. Peak experiences, which many people want to achieve now in this modern arena. In the modern arena and coming century or maybe the coming decades will be where the robots will do everything for you. You will be in the need of somebody who is able to appreciate your emotions. In the era of AI, artificial intelligence, where robotics will play most of the role, especially for the developed country. Not sure about the countries like India, because although we are at the path to becoming a developed country, but still we are at the crossroads of social revolution, where there are so many social maladies which are pulling us back in our developmental paradigm. So we must pay attention to this fact that are we moving towards a right kind of development, or are we moving towards a development which USA has achieved, despite the fact that US has got the best lifestyles. They have got the highest debt also internationally, highest number of crimes, stress, obesity. Are we moving to the same kinds of urbanization? Because these are also the concerns of psychology only. This cannot be separate from your understanding, because psychology's most prime duty is to ensure psychological well-being. And humanistic psychology gave rise to this duty of psychology in form of community psychology. And positive psychology movement. Positive psychology is not positivism. Positivism is moving towards science. Positive psychology is focusing on positive emotion, psychological well-being. That should be your approach as well. When humanistic psychology was making inroads in form of various theories propounded by Maslow and Rogers, another revolution was taking shape, and I call it a revolution because it was cognitive psychology, another perspective. the most modern of all the perspectives, which focused on the cognitive development. It said that we are not animals, we have our own thinking process. If we understand human beings' cognitive development, which was highlighted by Piaget, Vygotsky, and many others, especially in the arena of intelligence, the theories of intelligence, the Aspas model, a revolution took shape because it compared human beings to the computers. It subscribes to the view that, like computers, human beings also process information. So once they encounter any stimulus, human beings don't remain idle or silent. There is a processing of information, then response is given. And the processing of information is largely dominated by the cognition. And this cognition is shaped by a step-by-step approach, which is called IPA, Information Processing Approach. The cognitive revolution in psychology gave birth to many of the modern arena phenomena like psycho-cybernetics, like cognitive neuroscience, and the most modern of it is AI, artificial intelligence, where we are talking about the natural language processing, NLP. Robots being able to decipher and conduct the human cognition in form of language. Robots having the capacity to process language, to generate language rather, and emotions also. This is the most modern phenomenon. It also gave rise to, in the era of therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, which I was suggesting to the people who are suffering from pathological lying. People who lie for the sake of lying. Lying has become the part of their personality, become the core dimension of their personality. They are not lying for a reason. They are not lying for doing anything good for humanity. They are lying because it has become the part of their personality, because they are actually addressing the lacuna in their personality, the gap in their personality, the vacuum they see which is there in their personality. And why this vacuum is there? Because these people are narcissists. Their narcissism, self-love to the extent that they want everybody to give their attention to these guys. They find themselves lackluster in the terms of personality, in the terms of achievement. They are going through lots of trauma and stress right now. And that trauma has shaped their personality in such a manner they keep on lying since childhood. Nobody caught them. You know what is the problem with Indian schools is that they don't keep a record of such liars, habitual liars. When children were lying, when their personality was getting shaped, US schools have a case history. In their PTM parent teacher meeting, the parents are told by teachers that these are children who are lying every now and then. Their behavior should be arrested now only, otherwise it will become from lying to cheating, then stealing, and if it remains the same till the time they achieve their adulthood, God forbid, then criminal activities. Cyber frauds, cyber stalking, may result into overt crime as well. If this activity is not arrested by the parents and caregivers, it is so dangerous. Like we saw certain applications today, there were some glitches in the classes as well, but we'll try to arrest all these things, and we'll continue our journey of first of all finishing the first block, which will be done in the next two classes. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow, it will be a break. We'll continue our journey towards success into UPSC and understanding psychology with lots of motivation and deep interest. Your interest will drive you to success. With your optional, you should be very, very interested. Optional, and psychology is such an interesting discipline, you know. Today I'll be dealing with the psychology of money. Yesterday I dealt with the pathological lying. Before that I had dealt with the Freudian slip. Likewise, such small concepts will keep on coming on my YouTube channel, MJ_IAS. Keep watching. Thank you very much.